NATO Military Symbols for land-based systems was the NATO standard for military map marking symbols. It was published as Allied Procedural Publication 6A. The symbols are designed to enhance NATO unregistered trademark's joint interoperability by providing a standard set of common symbols. APP6A constitutes a single system of joint military symbology for land-based formations and units, which can be displayed for either automated map display systems or for manual map marking. It covers all of the joint services and can be used by them. History: the first basic military map symbols began to be used by Western armies in the decades following the end of the Napoleonic Wars. During World War I, there was a degree of harmonization between the British and French systems, including the adoption of the color red for enemy forces and blue for allies. The British had previously used red for friendly troops because of the traditional red coats of British soldiers. However, the system now in use is broadly based on that devised by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 1917. The infantry symbol of a satire in a rectangle was said to symbolize the crossed belts of an infantryman, while the single diagonal line for cavalry was said to represent the saber belt. With the formation of NATO in 1949, the U.S. Army system was standardized and adapted, with different shapes for friendly, hostile and unknown forces. APP6A was promulgated in December 1999. The NATO Standardization Agreement that covers APP6A is STANAG 2019, promulgated in December 2000. APP6A replaced APP6, which had been promulgated in November 1984, and was replaced in turn by Joint Symbology APP6-B, in 2008 and NATO Joint Military Symbology APP6-C, in 2011. The U.S. is the current custodian of APP6A, which is equivalent to MILSTD 2525A. Symbol sets: the APP6A standard provides common operational symbology along with details on their display and plotting to ensure the compatibility, and to the greatest extent possible, the interoperability of NATO land component command, control, communications, computer, and intelligence systems, development, operations, and training. APP6A addresses the efficient transmission of symbology information through the use of a standard methodology for symbol hierarchy, information taxonomy, and symbol identifiers. APP6A recognizes 5 broad sets of symbols, each set using its own SIDC scheme: units, equipment, and installations, military operations, METOC, signals intelligence, MOOTW, units, equipment, and installations consist of icons, generally framed, associated with a single point on the map. All sorts of graphical and textual modifiers may surround them, specifying categories, quantities, dates, direction of movement, etc. Tactical graphics represent operational information that cannot be presented via icon-based symbols alone: unit boundaries, special area designations, and other unique markings related to battlespace geometry and necessary for battlefield planning and management. There are point, line and area symbols in this category. Meteorological and oceanographic symbology is the only set not under the standard's control, rather, they are imported from the symbology established by the World Meteorological Organization. The signals intelligence and military operations other than war symbology sets stand apart from units, equipment, and installations, although they obey the same conventions. They do not appear in APP6A proper, having been introduced by MILSTD 2525B. Icon-based symbols: most of the symbols designate specific points, and consist of a frame, a fill, a constituent icon, and optional symbol modifiers. The latter are optional text fields or graphic indicators that provide additional information. The frame provides a visual indication of the affiliation, battle dimension, and status of an operational object. The use of shape and color is redundant, allowing the symbology to be used under less than ideal conditions such as a monochrome red display to preserve the operator's night vision. Nearly all symbols are highly stylized and can be drawn by persons almost entirely lacking in artistic skill. This allows one to draw a symbolic representation using tools as rudimentary as plain paper and pencil. The frame serves as the base to which other symbol components and modifiers are added. In most cases, a frame surrounds an icon. One major exception is equipment, which may be represented by icons alone. The fill is the area within a symbol. If the fill is assigned a color, it provides an enhanced presentation of information about the affiliation of the object. If color is not used, the fill is transparent. A very few icons have fills of their own, which are not affected by affiliation. The icons themselves, finally, can be understood as combinations of elementary glyphs that use simple composition rules, in a manner reminiscent of some ideographic writing systems such as Chinese. The standard, however, still attempts to provide an exhaustive listing of possible icons instead of laying out a dictionary of component glyphs. This causes operational problems when the need for an unforeseen symbol arises, a problem exacerbated by the administratively centralized maintenance of the symbology sets. Unit icons. The icon is the innermost part of a symbol which, when displayed, provides an abstract pictorial or alphanumeric representation of an operational object. The icon portrays the role or mission performed by the object. APP6A distinguishes between icons that must be framed or unframed and icons where framing is optional. Equipment icons. Equipment icons are frame optional. Installation icons, modifier icons. All the previously mentioned symbols can be used independently as well as in combinations. There are also some symbols that cannot appear by themselves, but can only be used to modify other unit symbols. Common combinations. Some of the most common combinations are unit sizes. Above the unit symbol, a symbol representing the size of the unit can be displayed. The typical commander ranks shown in the table are for illustration. Neither the actual rank designated for a particular unit's commander, nor the rank held by the incumbent commander alters the appropriate symbol. For example, units are periodically commanded by an officer junior to the authorized commander grade, yet a company under the command of a lieutenant or captain is still indicated with two vertical ticks. Likewise, some peculiar types of companies and detachments are authorized a major, lieutenant colonel or colonel. The company or detachment is nevertheless indicated with, respectively, one vertical tick or three dots. While in Commonwealth armies, the regiment as a tactical formation does not normally exist. In some cases a regimental-sized task force may exist where the operational requirement exists. These formations may be commanded by colonels. Note that, for brigades and higher, the number of XS corresponds to the number of stars in the United States military's insignia for the typical general officer grade commanding that size unit. For example, a division is capped with 20 and is usually commanded by a major general, the American insignia for which is 2 stars. Commonwealth Air Force ground combat forces are ground combat forces such as the Royal Air Force Regiment, which is part of the British RAF and charged with airfield defence. Status. The status of a symbol refers to whether a warfighting object exists at the location identified or will in the future reside at that location. Regardless of affiliation, present status is indicated by a solid line and planned status by a dashed line. The frame is solid or dashed, unless the symbol icon is unframed, in which case the icon itself is drawn dashed. Planned status cannot be shown if the symbol is an unframed filled icon. Affiliation. Affiliation refers to the relationship of the tracker to the operational object being represented. The basic affiliation categories are unknown, friend, neutral, and hostile. In the ground unit domain, a yellow quatrefoil frame is used to denote unknown affiliation, a blue rectangle frame to denote friendly affiliation, a green square frame to denote neutral affiliation, and a red diamond frame to denote hostile affiliation. In the other domains, the same color scheme is used. The full set of affiliations is, pending, unknown, assumed friend, neutral, suspect, hostile, exercise pending, exercise unknown, exercise assumed friend, exercise neutral, joker, faker. There are no assumed neutral, and exercise assumed neutral affiliations. These colors are used in phrases such as blue on blue for friendly fire, blue force tracking, red teaming, and red cells. Battle dimension. Battle dimension defines the primary mission area for the operational object within the battle space. An object can have a mission area above the Earth's surface, on it, or below it. If the mission area of an object is on the surface, it can be either on land or sea. The subsurface dimension concerns those objects whose mission area is below the sea surface. Some cases require adjudication. For example, an Army or Marine helicopter unit is a maneuvering unit and is thus represented in the land dimension. Likewise, a landing craft whose primary mission is ferrying personnel or equipment to and from shore is a maritime unit and is represented in the sea surface dimension. A landing craft whose primary mission is to fight on land, on the other hand, is a ground asset and is represented in the land dimension. Closed frames are used to denote the land and sea surface dimensions. Frames open at the bottom denote the airspace dimension, and frames open at the top denote the subsurface dimension. An unknown battle dimension is possible. For example, some electronic warfare signatures are common to several battle dimensions and would therefore be assigned an unknown battle dimension until further discrimination becomes possible. The full set of battle dimensions is space, air, ground, sea surface, sea subsurface, SOF, other, unknown. The letter in parentheses is used by the symbol identification coding scheme strings of 15 characters used to transmit symbols. The space and air battle dimensions share a single frame shape. In the ground battle dimension, two different frames are used for the friendly affiliations in order to distinguish between units and equipment. The SOF are assigned their own battle dimension because they typically can operate across several domains in the course of a single mission. The frames are the same as for the ground battle dimension. The other battle dimension, finally, seems to be reserved for future use. Symbol modifiers. APP6A stops with field AB. MIL STD 2525B and 2525B change one add a number of other modifiers. Graphic modifiers. Echelon identifies command level. Task force identifies a unit as a task force. It may be used alone or in combination with echelon, like so. Frame shape modifier. A short textual modifier that completes the affiliation, battle dimension, or exercise description of an object. It is treated as a graphic modifier, however. Direction of movement. A fixed length arrow that identifies the direction of movement or intended movement of an object. It emanates from the symbol center except in the ground domain, where it is hooked to a short offset, straight down from the symbol's base center. Mobility indicator depicts the mobility of an object. It is used only with equipment. Headquarters staff or offset location identifies a unit as a headquarters, or indicates the object's actual location on the map when it has been shifted away in order to declutter the display. It goes straight down from the symbol's center left, then angles towards the actual location. Faint dummy identifies a unit intended to draw the anemia unregistered trademark S attention away from the area of the main attack, or a decoy designed to fool enemy intelligence. It consists of a dashed chevron, placed above the frame, like the echelon graphic modifier. See faint dummies, below. Installation identifies a particular symbol as an installation. It sits atop the frame. See installations, below. Auxiliary equipment indicates the presence of a towed sonar array. It sits below the frame, like field R. Area of uncertainty indicates the area where an object is most likely to be, based on the objector unregistered trademark S last report and the reporting accuracy of the sensor that detected it. This can take various forms, such as an ellipse, a bounding box, or lines indicating probable bearing and distance. Dead reckoning trailer identifies where an object should be located at present, given its last reported course and speed. This can take the form of a dotted line or a dotted circle. Speed leader depicts the speed and direction of movement of an object. It is identical to the direction of movement indicator except that its length is variable. Pairing line connects two objects. feints, dummies and installations, mobility and auxiliary equipment, text modifiers, quantity identifies the number of equipment items present. Reinforced or reduced displays for reinforced, for reduced and reduced. Staff comments, additional information, evaluation rating A letter and number reliability and credibility rating, assigned by intelligence. Combat effectiveness, signature equipment used for hostile equipment. Indicates a detectable electronic signature. Higher formation number or title of higher echelon command. Hostile ENY denotes hostile equipment. IFF identification modes and codes. SIGINT mobility indicator M for mobile, S for static, U for uncertain. Unique designation, type, date time group indicates the symbol's date and time stamp. Altitude depth, location in degrees, minutes, and seconds. Speed velocity as set forth in MILS TD 6040. Special C2 headquarters, platform type ELNOT, or CENOT, equipment teardown time in minutes. Common identifier example, Hawk for a Hawk SAM system. Other information, on the lower left of the unit symbol, the name of the unit can be displayed. On the lower right, the name of the unit it is part of can be displayed. For example, the symbol for Alpha Company of the 42nd Armored Infantry Battalion would look like this, a hostile motorized anti-tank division would look like this, APP-6 Organization Chart of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. MILS TD 2525A, APP-6A, Military Symbols for Land-Based Systems was developed directly from MILS TD 2525A, Common Warfighting Symbology. MILS TD 2525A was the American standard for military symbols. The custodian of APP-6 is the United States. APP-6A remained unchanged as work on harmonizing it with the DAT-P3, NATO message text formatting system was carried out. In 1999, APP-6 was moved from the Army Service Board to the Joint Service Board. With this move, APP-6 was placed under the Information Exchange Requirements Harmonization Message Text Format Working Group. The IERHMTFWG then formed the Joint Symbology Panel to provide configuration management of APP-6 with the U.S. custodian as the chairman. With the ratification and promulgation of APP-6B, in 2008, the name was changed to NATO Military Symbology to better reflect the nature of the publication. In 2011, with the introduction of APP-6C, the name was changed to NATO Joint Military Symbology. The U.S. military required new symbols to support ongoing operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, so the pace of change between APP-6 and MILS TD 2525 remained uneven until 2009. In 2009, a new chairman for DoD Symbology Standardization Management Committee was appointed, and the two configuration management organizations began to work together. The two organizations held joint meetings with full participation on both sides. The goal of both groups is to develop comprehensive joint military symbology that is common to both organizations to the greatest extent possible. APP-6C began the process of changing the format of the publications and introduced new symbol identification codes. MILS TD 2525D has carried that one step further with more symbols and more symbol sets derived from recent NATO and US operations. MILS TD 2525D will serve as the base document for APP-6D, as the two documents move closer together. References: 2525D Manuals from Defence Information Systems Agency, UK Interim APP-6A Manual Note. This document has since been replaced with Issue 1.2, dated December 2003, Thibault, D.U. Commented APP-6A Euro Military Symbols for Land-Based Systems, Defence & Canada Euro Valcartier, Technical Note Tennessee, 2005-222. External links: Korean War Era Map Symbols at Army.mil, the map symbols as true type fonts, an online tool for generating symbols, MILSTD 2525D.